Hi everyone, and welcome to Geometry Lesson 1-5, using formulas in geometry. In this video, we're just going to review some of the formulas and terms that you'll need to complete the examples in this lesson. So let's take a look at some terms and formulas. The first term we have is perimeter. It's the sum of the side lengths of a figure. So essentially, it's the total distance around an object. So if you were to start walking at one of the corners, and you measured the total distance you had to walk to get back to that corner after walking around the outside, that would be the perimeter, okay? So it's the total distance you'd have to walk to go all the way around a shape. Now, area is the number of non-overlapping square units of a given size that exactly cover the figure. So it's like the total amount of stuff inside the figure. So if I wanted to wrap this rectangle in wrapping paper, and I just wanted it to cover the very top, it would be the amount of wrapping paper I need to cover that top. Now let's look at some specific formulas to find perimeter and area. For a rectangle, remember, it has two pairs of congruent sides, and it has right angles. The perimeter, you can find it by simply adding up all four of these sides, and that would be acceptable, but there is a shortcut. Okay, you can do 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, or you could even write it like this, length plus width times 2. And that would find the perimeter for you. It's a shortcut. Now for area, it's just length times width. And you probably remember that from earlier in your school years. For a square, the perimeter is 4 times the side length because all 4 sides are equal. So you can just multiply by 4, or you can do side plus side plus side plus side, which is definitely the longer way, but it would still work. And for area, you can do side times side because they're the same. So it's side squared. You just do the side times itself. The last shape we have here is a triangle. For the perimeter, you just have to add all 3 sides. There's no shortcut for that. But for area, it's 1/2 times the base length times the height. And you can write it like this, base times height divided by 2, and that would work as well. But the thing to remember is about where this height is. It measures the distance from the top of the triangle to the base. And it's the shortest distance from there. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a closer look about what's going on with that height. When you're working with triangles, it's really important to know which side is the base and which side is the height. Because remember, these are shapes, and I can turn it on its side and it's still the same shape. So when you're using the area formula, it's really, really important to designate which sides those are. So when they give you the measurements for a triangle, anything that's labeled as B, side B, is going to be the base for that triangle. Okay, so if they ever give you a B equals some number, use that as the base for your triangle. The height is measuring from the other vertex down to the base. So it has to measure from the vertex to the base, and it has to show this right angle symbol. Very, very important. So the height could be one of the sides of a triangle if the triangle's right. It can go through the middle of the triangle, or it can be outside the triangle. It just has to measure from the opposite vertex down to the base. That's what it measures. Now we have a few more formulas for circles coming up next. Before we get to the formulas, though, we have to talk about a few important terms first. Okay, you probably already know these from grade school, but let's just review them really fast. The diameter is a segment that passes through the center of the circle and whose endpoints are on the circle. Essentially, it's the total distance across the center of the circle. The radius is a segment whose endpoints are the center of the circle and a point on the circle. So it measures from the middle to the edge of the circle. And the circumference is the distance around the circle. So if I was to measure from right here all the way around the circle, this green line, that is the circumference. Essentially, it's the perimeter of a circle, but we just give it a special name because circles are special to us. Now let's look at some formulas. As I just said, circumference is essentially the perimeter of a circle. So to find that circumference, we're going to use two different formulas, and it depends on what you know about your circle. If you know the diameter of a circle, you would use the first formula. Circumference equals pi times diameter. If you know the radius of your circle, you would use the second formula. Circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. Okay, so those are the formulas for the circumference. Now let's look at area. To find the area of a circle, you need to know the radius value. But remember, the radius is half the length of the circle and the diameter is the total length. So if you're given diameter, you can just divide diameter by 2. Okay, and that's why these two formulas work. Notice the only difference here is that you have 2 times the radius here, and this one you just have diameter. Diameter actually is 2 times the radius, and radius is half of the diameter. So to find the area, it's just pi times the radius squared. Now, pi is a special number. It is irrational, and it goes on forever. Your calculator has a special pi button on it that I'm going to show you when you get to class. But if you need to estimate it, usually we use 3.14 or the fraction 22 divided by 7. Both of those are acceptable. So that's it for this video. Please write down any questions you have and bring them in to class when you next come, and I'll see you then.